Let's talk about why your team depends on you and is coming to you with every question, every problem, and expecting you to have the answers and come up with all of the solutions. And most importantly, let's talk about how you can change it. I'm Zoe Thompson, and I help leaders become more efficient, more effective, so that they can go home on time and take a week off knowing that they've got a confident and capable team back in the office, keeping things ticking over so that they can chill out and enjoy a big week off. So as I said, today I want to talk about why your team depends on you for everything and how to change it. So this is from a recent blog I've written. You'll see me scrolling through my notes as I talk this through, but I want to talk about how you and your willingness to be helpful and to be supportive is potentially what is creating a bottleneck with your team and is decreasing their confidence and decreasing both your efficiency and effectiveness and theirs too. So if everything is having to come through you, you're a bottleneck and you can't take a week off. Not really. You might physically leave the building. You might even book the holiday. What happens next? The messages start to come through. The questions start to come through. The decisions that only you can make start to pile up either in your messages box or in your email box. And you check your phone once and then again, and before you know it, you're back in the hotel room having to log on to answer all of the questions so that things don't come to a standstill just because you are on holiday. And ultimately, there's a risk that you are going to resent what you have also enabled. It's not a holiday, it's just working somewhere warmer and probably going to get yourself into trouble with the people that you're traveling with as well. Nobody wants to take their laptop on holiday, not really, let's be honest. If we could just walk out and forget about work for it, even if it's just for a couple of days, we all want to do that. But most people who do log on, check their emails, check their phone while they're on holiday, it's because they think it will make life easier. It's also part of the problem, because easier for who? The reason why your team can't function without you isn't because they're not capable, it's because you have trained them not to be. Every time you answer that question that they could have figured out for themselves, you've taught them not to think independently. Every time you make the decision for them, you've reinforced that they can't trust themselves to make it themselves. And every time you've responded to messages late at night or on a weekend, you've taught them that those times outside of office hours are fair game. Your team isn't depending on you because they need to, they're depending on you because that's how you've trained them. In your willingness to be supportive, you have taught them that you are the solution. You have the answers, you have the solutions, you are the fixer. And the sooner you change this, the better. So we can talk about the bottleneck. We can talk about how this is becoming a challenge. And when your team can't function without you, the costs are both immediate and obvious. It's your evenings that are lost, your weekends that are consumed, and a holiday that isn't really a holiday. But there's hidden costs that run a lot deeper. You are not spending your time on strategic work. I can guarantee it. When your day is consumed by the questions and the problems that your team are bringing to you, your important work, your strategic work is getting pushed back. It's getting paused, and that is why you are logging on the evenings and on the weekends playing catch up or trying to get ahead of the week, because you know that this is what's going to happen. When you're reactive all day, then you are planning to be strategic in the evening, and your energy, your focus, your concentration time is not going to be what it is not going to be at the level you need it to be at. If you've already done an 8 to 10 hour working day, you are likely to be making mistakes. You are likely to not be thinking in the way that you really need to get a really good job done. Your boundaries are eroding completely. There's no clear end to the working day when your team needs you at all hours. So even if you are logging off on time, but then going home and logging back on the laptop, if your team are still sending you questions, you've still got those disruptions, you've still got those questions coming through. You are not having that time to switch off. So you're not protecting your time. And what are you missing out on? If you're mentally present at work, even when you are physically at home, what are you missing out on? Can you get that back? It's a really important thing to consider. Now, I also want to talk about how your team's capability is stalling. Every problem that you solve for them is a problem they are not learning to solve themselves. So you are putting a ceiling on their potential and their capability. You're not developing your team. You're creating dependency. So as much as you think this is helpful, as much as you think this is being supportive, it isn't. You are clipping the wings and the potential of your team. And you probably were involved in recruiting your team. You recruited people who are confident, who are capable, and who you saw that potential in, and now you are the person that is preventing that evolution and that growth for them. So it's not just their confidence that takes a hit, your confidence is going to take a hit too, because if you are not doing the work that you are employed to do and you are responsible to do, or if you are the owner of the business, you're not spending the time on the activities and the tasks that are going to help that business grow, then you're going to start to question whether or not you are capable of working at that level. And I have this conversation with clients all the time. They start to question whether or not they're actually able to work at this level. And it's not a capability issue. It's capacity, because they're being pulled down into what the rest of the team are doing. And if this starts to happen, then your business, your team is going to hit that ceiling. The team or business that depends entirely on one person, potentially on you, cannot scale beyond your personal capacity. So you're becoming the lid on your potential, the business potential, and your team's potential as well. So we need to make sure that you don't have operations or decisions that are fully dependent on one person. It's a single point of failure. So we need to make sure that we are not putting one person with all of that responsibility on them. Let's talk about why your team have learned to need you. How did this happen? And quite possibly, how has this happened without you even realizing it? When you get promoted, the skills that got you to that next level are potentially the skills now that are making you feel overwhelmed. So you got promoted because you were a great problem solver. You're fast, you're decisive, you're reliable, you have the answers, you are the subject matter expert. People came to you and you delivered, and that's what made you really valuable. But at this higher level, those exact same behaviors create the bottleneck. Being the fastest problem solver doesn't build the strong team, it builds a team that can't function without you. So this happens in leadership, in organizations. It also happens with business owners. As a business owner, when you first started out, you were the person. You had all of the hats. You delivered on the business and you worked in the business. And so you were used to having all of those roles. You were used to being the one person who did all of the things all of the time. You got it done. That's what made your business successful. And then as you start to either allocate work out or you start to bring stuff in, you have to let go of that to allocate and delegate to the people who are now working alongside you and working with you or working for you. This is part of the challenge. We have to let that identity or that part of our identity go for us to be successful at this next level. I appreciate that this is a little bit of tough love in this video, but this is a conversation that comes up with a lot of the clients that I work with, because a lot of leaders are spending 40 to 50% of their time on activities they should never be doing, answering the questions when people really can be finding out the answers to themselves, and still being that great problem solver rather than a solutions provider, or identifying solutions for people to go away and work on. Now, whilst this happens with the best of intentions, and I totally get how this happens and how we get to this situation, what's really important to remember, and this really might help you to reframe this and think about it in a different way. When you solve problems for your team, you undermine three things that they fundamentally need: autonomy, the control over their own choices; competence, building their own capability and confidence; and relatedness, where they belong, how they contribute, how they are significant in terms of the team that they're working with or the business that they're working in. Our ego likes to know more, it likes to be right, and it likes when everybody comes to us for answers. It loves to be the oracle. It loves to be the person who is the go-to person. And this is what I see with a lot of my clients. It's also exactly what I experienced as I worked my way up through into senior leadership as well. Letting go of that is really difficult, and it is uncomfortable because it's a very different way of working, and it's also letting go of what has helped us to be as successful as we have been to date. It isn't a character flaw, it's an evolution in our leadership behaviour, and because it's a learned behaviour, the good news is that these patterns can change. So what does team dependency look like? And I'll give you a couple of examples through real client work that has been anonymised. So first client A, managing 10 members of staff and drowning under their own workload. Every problem is landing on their desk, and the strategic work was definitely not happening during the working day. It was happening at 7 p.m. onwards or on weekends. They tried delegation, but it didn't quite stick. Everything just kept coming back. Now, initially, they raised it as wanting to work on their delegation, wanting to be better at delegation. But when we talked about it and when we explored it in the client coaching sessions, we actually recognized that the root of all of this was the identity of how they saw themselves. They still saw themselves as operating as that reactive problem solver who'd earned their promotion. And that identity shift that was needed was taking them away from being a reactive problem solver into being an intentional leader who develops problem solvers. You see the difference? Being the reactive problem solver to being the leader who develops problem solvers. Once we started to talk about that, once that shift started to happen, then this client actually came up with a solution of building monthly innovation shares, so the team learned from each other instead of just from them. Letting go of the identity of needing to be seen as the person who knows more, the person who's always right, they started to share that experience and share that expertise across the team. Firstly, it freed up their hours, so there's already a big win there. But the additional benefit of that was that their team started to recognize the experience and expertise amongst their own team, amongst their peers, and started to be more confident in making independent decisions and going to each other. The second client, they did the Elevate Your Efficiency Blueprint leadership program with me. And when we first started working together, when we started the program, they described being in a cycle of back-to-back meetings, dealing with relentless crises, and constantly in that reacting phase. So they described themselves as that firefighter. They wanted to think more like a senior leader. They wanted to be more strategic, but they just didn't have the space to be able to get into that headspace. Now, as we worked our way through the program over the 8 weeks, things started to shift, not just for them, but for their team as well. So they recognized that the things that they were implementing as a result of what they were learning on the program, they were recognizing that their team were also starting to implement these things too. So not only were they elevating their efficiency as a leader, they were starting to elevate the efficiency of their team members as well. On the program, we talked about a great tool being 3 Before Me, which was something that was actually shared by one of the leaders on the program, something that they use in their business. 3 Before Me. Before you come to me as the leader, I want you to try 3 different ways to find out that answer. This is a great way to train your team to go and look for the answers elsewhere. They need to see you as that escalation rather as that first point of contact. And when this leader started to share with their team that this is what they wanted them to do, they noticed that the bottleneck started to disappear, and that change really rippled outwards. The 3 Before Me is very simple. Before they come to you with a question, they must try 3 different ways to find the answer. Checking processes or guidelines, Googling it, checking internal reference points, asking a colleague, just looking for the answer independently. Only if they've genuinely exhausted 3 options do they escalate it to come to you. And when they do come to you, and this is the critical part, instead of jumping in and solving it, I know you know the answer. They know you know the answer, but use a coaching approach. Ask them questions like, where have you already looked? What have you found out so far? What would you do if I wasn't available? The last question is the most powerful one because it forces them to trust their own thinking. In coaching, we have the ethos that the person sitting in front of us is an incredibly resourceful person. They have the answers. They just don't know what questions to ask to bring those answers to the surface. Coaching isn't about giving the answers. Coaching is about giving people the space to find the answers. And a coaching approach in leadership is exactly the same. You trust your team. You trust that your team know the answers. They just need the space and different questions to help them to identify what those answers are. So trust them, or help them to trust their own thinking. Help them to trust their own decision making so that you aren't the easiest option every time. Your accessibility is their incapability. So you are in escalation, not the first option. Now, when a problem lands on your desk, before you jump in to solve it, use the 4P reset. This is going to help you to shift that pattern of behavior. Because at the moment, this is a pattern of behavior. It's an automatic reaction rather than an intentional response. And the 4P reset helps you to move from reactive to intentional. So first off, I want you to pause, take a moment, take a breath. You know the answer, but giving them the answer might not be the most appropriate response. So create a space before responding. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Pause. Then prioritize. Does this actually need you, or are you just the easiest option? Does it need your specific experience and expertise to answer this question, or is this question available to them elsewhere? Giving them the answer is an option. Is it the best option? Making the decision for them is an option. Is it the best option? Or would it be more helpful to them and to you to help them, guide them, support them through making that decision so that next time they're able to make that decision without you? The easiest option is not always the best option. Pause, prioritize, and then you can proceed with purpose, coaching them through it instead of solving it for them. Now, this is the difference between reactive leadership, you solving it, and intentional leadership, you developing their ability to solve it. Now, you can also use my AAA time framework to protect your strategic work. So this is what we do in the first week of the Elevate Your Efficiency Leadership Program. We look at where you're spending your time. Ascend time, the strategic work that only you can do. This has got to be protected. It has to be non-negotiable. This is what you are responsible for and what you are accountable for. So this ascend time must be protected. Then you have anchor time, your supportive tasks that keep the momentum going. Ascend time drives momentum. Anchor time keeps the momentum going. So they are important tasks. They do need to be done, but they are what keeps things going rather than drives things forward. Now, avoid time, that third A, this is what we're talking about here. The reactive patterns that are what is creating the bottleneck. The time that is draining without any return on that investment. So answering questions your team can answer themselves, solving problems they can solve, making decisions they can make. These are avoid time tasks. When the problem comes to you, ask yourself, does it need to be me? Does it need to be now? Does it need to be like this? We talk about no being a full sentence. Most people aren't comfortable with saying no just like that. And I actually don't believe that that is very often helpful when you're trying to support and guide your team. So when somebody comes to you with a question, with a problem, or with a decision that needs to be made, just think, does this need to be me? Can someone else help you solve this? Does it need to be now? If you are in the middle of an ascend time task and this is time that needs to be protected, then ask them, does this need to be done right now? I'm in the middle of this task. Can I call you when I'm finished, or can you come back in an hour's time? Or does it need to be like that? Can you say, actually not like that? Is there a better way to address this? And maybe even consider what's at the root cause rather than just that surface level symptom. When you make this shift, and I see this all the time with clients who make this shift, when you stop being the person who solves the problems and you start being the person who develops the problem solvers, you will quickly see the change. Can guarantee it. I see this happen all the time. Your days change. The constant interruptions start to reduce. You start finishing that strategic work during the working hours, when you've got time, when you've got energy, when you've still got that focus, rather than trying to do it in the evenings. So your teams start to change as well. They're going to become more confident, they're going to become more capable and more independent. They won't keep waiting for you. They'll start trusting themselves to make those decisions, to find those answers. So there's a benefit for them and there's a benefit for you. Your evenings start to change. You actually leave work at work, or close the laptop and close down the work with it, and you're present at home, rather than physically being there and mentally still being elsewhere. And this is what makes that big week off become possible. Now, one of my clients took a week away at a critical point in their business, specifically to force their team to function without them. Not because they wanted to, and they were definitely a little bit nervous about doing it, but because they understood that if they were always there, their team would never have the opportunity to develop the capability and the confidence in their capability to manage without them. And they came back to a team that had handled it. And they also came back to a team that was positive, was confident, and felt good about themselves and how they were able to contribute and have a significant impact on the running of the business in that leader's absence. That's what intentional leadership looks like. Not indispensable, not the bottleneck, but the leader who develops a team that are capable of covering for a week so that you can have that week off with zero work, zero stress, and zero guilt about leaving them. Now, if you want to create a team that can function without you and you're looking for more resources, here's where you can start. Firstly, track where your time is actually going. Now, I offer a free time audit using the AAA framework. That is the free download on my website. So if you don't know where your time is going, do the 3-day time audit, and then you can use the workbook that comes with it to help you to decide where your time needs to be going. Try introducing the 3 before me rule. Communicate it clearly, explain why. It's not about being unavailable or being unsupportive, it's actually supporting them to develop their capability. Stop solving, start asking. Next time someone brings you a problem, ask them, what would you do if I wasn't here? And see what they have to answer. Help guide them, help support them, and coach them. Don't take the problem off them. Use the 4P reset before responding. Make sure it is a response rather than a reaction. You know the answer. Giving them the answer isn't what is helpful in the moment, and definitely not longer term. So use the 4P reset before you respond. This will be the difference between being a reactive leader to being an intentional leader. We want to reprogram these behaviors and habits. We want you to move you into this place where you are able to be an intentional leader. Intentional leaders build confident and capable teams. So ask yourself the real question here. If you took a week off tomorrow, what would happen? And that answer tells you exactly what needs to change. If everything would stop, if they would still be blowing up your phone because you're not in the office to ask in person, then you are potentially the bottleneck. And I hate to break it to you, but you are part of the problem, and your behaviours need to change as well as driving the behaviours of your team. As I said, the good news is it's a pattern of behaviour, it's a learned response, and so we can learn different. I'm here to help you if you need more support with that. But if you want support developing the team that can function without you so you can take the big week off, zero work, zero stress, zero guilt, then feel free to get in touch. I've got free training. There are more videos here on the YouTube channel. There's also the weekly podcast as well. We've got the leadership community for that ongoing support, and the Elevate Your Efficiency leadership program if you want to learn more about how to become a more intentional leader. I'd love to hear what your takeaways are from today's video. If you've got any questions, come and ask. I'm more than happy to answer, and I'll be back again soon with another video.